Hi, today we're going to be making homemade quiche. You'll see in the description we've added all the ingredients and equipment needed, but I'm going to do a quick run through before we get started of what you're going to be needing for today. So first and foremost, you're going to need a dish for your quiche. So this is one that I've actually inherited from my mum, but this is a flan dish. It's 22 centimetres. You can use a tin, ceramic. It just needs to be oven proof and around this size. If you're using something smaller, just remember that you might want something a bit deeper if you're going to fit all the mixture in, or you might just not need as much. So 22 centimetre flan dish there. You're going to want a rolling pin to roll out your pastry later. You're going to need a mixing bowl, and then these are the ones which are a bit unique, so it's not so much this one, but parchment paper. So when we come to baking later, your pastry is going to be inside, your parchment is going to go on top, and then to weigh down the pastry, I've got some dried chickpeas. You can buy ceramic balls. You could use dried rice or the chickpeas or something similar to that, something that is food safe and that can weigh down your pastry. But we will come back to that in a bit. Ingredients wise, for the pastry, we're going to start off with some plain flour and some chilled butter and a bit of water. What we're going to do is split this workshop into two parts. We're going to focus on the pastry first and then the filling. So I'm not going to run through all the ingredients for the filling yet, because that's going to change anyway depending on what you want to put in. You've got it to the side, and we'll recap later when we look at the filling. So let's get on with the pastry making. I've weighed out 175 grams of plain flour, and I'm going to add that to my bigger bowl for mixing. I'm not going to sieve that. I'm not looking to get any air into it, so you can just go straight ahead and tip the 175 grams of flour, plain flour, into your bowl. To that, I'm going to add 75 grams of chilled butter. What you will find is pastry works best when it is cold. Oh, I've got some extra butter there. So it's really good idea to have cold hands, chilled butter and cold water when doing this. So we're going to make that into breadcrumbs now. So I've already chopped up, if you saw that, butter into little cubes just to make it easier for me. And you're going to want to pinch that together, but not overly work with the butter because we don't want to melt it. So I'm just going to work quickly, and I'm just doing that kind of motion to break up the butter and combine it with the flour. I'll show you my bowl in a minute. But this is a similar process to a lot of like scones, biscuits. You often do this, sweet pastry, crumble mixes. So I'm just going to keep working this until it's nicely combined. So once we've done the pastry, we're going to put it in the fridge for 30 minutes. So that's your chance to have a break, have a cup of tea, and then come back to the video to watch the second part. So I don't know how you're doing, but I am almost there. If I show you now, before I go any further, how that's looking. So you can see I've got a few lumps in there, so I'm just going to go a bit more. This isn't going to come together as a dough yet. This is going to be crumbs. Like, it should look like breadcrumbs. It doesn't matter if you've got a few larger pieces, but you want to break it down as much as possible. Right. Right, once you've done that, I think I'm about there. We want to add enough water just to bring this together. Now mine's feeling quite moist as it is, so I'm not going to add too much. There we go. I'm just going to add a tablespoon at a time, and I'm going to use a metal spoon. Again, the reason I'm using a metal spoon is because it's nice and cold, It's just a good type of spoon to use on pastry. Right, so I'm putting that water in, and that's not going to bring it together, it's not enough. So I'm going to use a second one, but all flours are different, all types of, depending on where your flour's from, some are more absorbent than others. So you do need to just keep an eye on that yourself. Make sure you use the right amount for your dough. And what we're looking for here is a nice ball of dough. We won't want it too sticky, just enough to combine it. So if you look now, you can see it's starting to come together, but it's not there yet. So I'm going to just do another, wrong way around, another tablespoon. We're being a bit noisy in the kitchen. The dishwasher is running, so hopefully that doesn't get too noisy in the background there. Right, so this is actually coming together a bit more. So I'm just going to work with it a moment rather than add more water, because I don't want it to get too sticky. I can actually feel that, and you can see it is coming together now as a dough. And I can see there's not so many loose bits. I'm going to show it to you again. There you go. So it's coming together. Now it will probably get to the stage that I need to use my hands to bring that together. So I'm going to just push off the extra from the spoon and put that to one side. And I'm going to use my hands, which are washed by the way. Make sure you have washed your hands before doing this bit. And I'm just going to press down and combine that, ta-da, into a dough. You see my bowl is now empty and the dough is combined, and it's not too sticky. And the reason you can see it's not too sticky is I can press that down and it's not coming off in my hand. It's a nice ball. Right, once you've got to that point, we're going to want, you've got two options. If you're finding it's quite warm, you might want to wrap it in some cling film and put it in the fridge for a few minutes before you try rolling this out. If you find that it's quite solid, then you can continue along with me, so no need to pause the video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of flour to my worktop. So yeah, if you do find that it's a little bit softer, you can put it in the fridge for 15-20 minutes in some cling film and then bring it out and then continue with this part. But if you have a nice solid looking dough, then continue along with me. So I'm just going to put some flour over my rolling pin because I don't want anything sticking to this pastry. Now we want to roll that pastry out to be able to fit into the tin, or the dish. So if the dish is 22 centimetres and the sides go up a few centimetres, I'm probably going to be looking at about the length of my rolling pin, if I show you. So about the length of my rolling pin, so it goes up the sides. So I'm going to apply a medium pressure and I'm going to turn it so that I can get a nice round shape. Like so. Now this is going to be quite a thin pastry. There we go. I'm going to keep turning it, keep those sides together, keep it in a nice round shape. If it starts to stick, just put a bit more flour underneath. And the reason you don't want too thick a pastry is you don't want that kind of doughiness to your quiche. It is you want a lovely crumbly thin texture to encase your filling. There we go, getting there. If you find that your pastry breaks and you need to start again, that's fine, but just if it gets too hot, you are going to want to roll it up and put it into the fridge and just give it a minute just to rest again. So I'm getting there now, I think, with the size. If you've followed along any of our other workshops, you will know that I'm quite into rustic cooking. I do like to go for things that taste good and look. They have to look nice, obviously, but I don't really do frilly edges and things on my quiche. I just like to have the taste. So that is about there. We're a bit wider one side than the other. Once more that way. Right, that is ready to line. Now what I didn't do, which I should have done before, is we need to grease this before we put the pastry in to make sure it doesn't stick. So I have a pastry brush. I have a little bit of leftover butter there. So I'm just going to use my silicone pastry brush. You don't have to use silicone. If you don't have a pastry brush, just get a bit of kitchen towel and dab it in the butter and rub it along. You could also try using an oil, if you've got one of those spray oils, and just rubbing that around. There we go. See, I haven't done enough that you can see it. You'd be able to feel it's greasy, but you can't see it. I don't want to add too much grease to that. Just enough that it won't stick. Now, to get this pastry in, I'm going to roll it around my rolling pin. So hopefully you can see this. So I'm going to make sure it's nice and firm along. Then I'm going to roll it up. So it's on there. I'm going to bring my dish forwards. And I'm going to start away from me. And I'm going to roll it into the tin. There we go. Now, I'm going to want to push that into the middle a bit. That's it. And I'm just using my finger to I'm pushing this back in so it doesn't put too much pressure on it. Can you see? So I'm pushing it back into the dish and then using my finger to press down in the sides there. So, and that just avoids any tears. If you do happen to have a tear in your pastry, just use a bit of the offcut and just press it in, because no one's going to see it. It's going to be covered in filling. So I think I'm about there. Now, if you have got an excess here, don't be tempted to cut too much of it off, because when it cooks, it's going to shrink it a little bit, so it will come inside your dish more. So if you've got a little bit, like I've got here, which is going to just overflow into my fridge, I'm going to just tear that off. And again, I've got a bit too much here, which is just going to flop everywhere. So I'm just going to take those bits off there. And I'm just pinching those off. But I'm not going to take any more. That's it. Right. So, actually, found a bit more. There we go. So we're going to cover this with a bit of cling film and we're going to put it in the fridge for 30 minutes, which will mean that it's nice and set into that dish and we can talk about baking the pastry. All right then, let's go put it in the fridge. And we're back. Hopefully you paused the video and you chilled your pastry in the fridge for the last 30 minutes and now you have it in front of you and it's pretty solid. So we're going to get this ready for baking. So I've got myself a fork and you're going to need this to prick the bottom of the pastry. You're not looking to go all the way through. We don't want to see the bottom of the dish. We just want to stab it a little bit just on the top to keep an even bake when we put it in the oven. So if you get your fork and just in various places along the pastry, just give it a little stab. Now, if you have been watching our videos, you will know that we normally do live videos and then we post them to YouTube. This is our first where it is just recorded. The reason we did this is because a lot of our followers wanted to do quiche making workshop, but there are so many parts to it, as you know now because you've already paused once, that this is the only way to do it. So we're going to keep doing these pauses and let you know when, so that you can have the perfect quiche. Right, once you have stabbed that all over, you're going to get your parchment paper and place it lightly over the top because your weighted beans are going to do the work. And then pour in the weights. Once they are in, we can use our hands just to spread those out a bit. And all this does is it stops the pastry from rising up and bubbling, because we want all that space for our filling. So there we go, that's pretty good. Now you should have, when we pause the video, we put on the oven temperature of 190 or 170 for fan or gas mark 5. So if you haven't already done that, you will need to do that now. Otherwise, if you did, you can pop this in. Now I would recommend putting this on a baking tray before you putting it in the oven. It's particularly true when you put the filling in because it's just easier to move without it sloshing around. So we will do that. We're going to put it onto a baking tray into the oven for 10 minutes. This is called blind baking. We're just going to make sure that the pastry part cooks and doesn't rise up. After that 10 minutes, we're going to take the parchment paper with all the weights inside out and let the pastry have a bit more. But we'll talk you through that. So for now, if you put your pastry in to the oven for 10 minutes at 190 or 170 fan or gas mark 5, and then pause your video and we'll come back in 10 minutes. And we're back again. So your pastry has been in the oven for 10 minutes to part bake. You'll see that it started to cook. So now we need to take out carefully, and not burning ourselves, the parchment and the beans. So I'm just going to put those into a heat-proof bowl just to get rid of those. So now I just want to cook the pastry again for 10 minutes to make sure that base is nice and cooked, so we don't have a wet base when we put the filling in. Right, so Mr. Boozy Bakers, who's been dutifully behind the camera, is going to put that in the oven for me because I'm all mic'd up. Thank you, love. We're not going to go anywhere this time. If you noticed as well, I've left all the edges quite tatty on the pastry at the moment. We're going to cut those off later once it's all cooked. So if you want to put your pastry into the oven again for 10 minutes, just to let that really bake. In the meantime, we are going to get on with our filling. So for this, I'll move these beads out the way. You're going to want enough to kind of give enough flavour in your quiche. So I've got 100 grams of cheese, 2 tomatoes and 3 or 4 slices of parma ham. Now you can use some nice crispy bacon, ham, you can go for roasted vegetables. There's endless choices, but that's kind of the amounts. But if you want a really densely meaty quiche, then just add more. It's your egg and your milk mixture that's going to set your quiche. So that's the bit which is actually going to make it the quiche like texture, and the ingredients is what's going to give you your flavour. So I've got myself a bowl and we need to add and a jug. So I've got 150 ml of milk. So 150 milliliter of milk going into there. I've done this the wrong way round, in fact. Sorry, I'm going to have to pour that back in because that's already measured out. What I haven't got measured out is my double cream. Now, if you don't want double cream, this adds richness to your quiche. You can use all milk, but I'm going to add 100 ml. See, now I can actually measure it out. 100 ml of the milk. There we go, 100 ml of milk, all over the place, 100 ml of cream, and I'm going to add to that 150 ml of milk. So I will repeat myself because I've confused me and probably you. That is 150 ml of milk and 100 of the cream. If you want a more 50-50 for something richer, you can do that. And if you just prefer to use milk, or that's all you've got to hand, just use all 250 ml of milk. But that is 150 of milk, 100 of cream, and to that I'm going to add 2 eggs. I'm going to I wouldn't try cracking on a plastic jug or bowl because it tends to bounce back. So I'm going to use a metal spoon and just crack my eggs rather violently into that mix. There we go, that was a bit more gentle. There we go. Right, and I'm going to whisk that together. Now you can season that as you would like. So I'm going to put a bit of pepper into that, and a little bit of salt. If you like these videos, we do have lots more. We've done pizza making, scones. What else have we done, Mr. Boozy Baker? Biscuits, soda bread, banana bread, tea loaf, cinnamon buns, which have probably been our most popular. So if you have joined us for the first time on this workshop, please do like and subscribe, like this video and subscribe to our channel. We are constantly updating, and we'd love to share our baking with you. Right, that is ready to go. So I'm going to just leave that over there. I don't need my salt anymore. And I'm going to have my tomatoes and my cheese ready. I would say cheese is quite key to a quiche as well for flavour. I would always add that. So whilst I'm chopping things up, and I think we've got 6 minutes left on the oven. So you can get yours ready. If you're frying up any bacon, that's no problem at all. Remember, this isn't one of our live videos, so it's nice and easy to go and pause it. Ooh, can I get an extra slice there? There we go, without taking my finger off. So I'll put those. I personally really like roasted vegetables in a quiche as well, but this is a bit of a family favourite. And I use parma ham because, again, it's what we have available, and I'm a big believer in using up what you've got in your cupboards. So if you've got some leftover ham, maybe you haven't had a ham sandwich for lunch, you've got a bit left over and it needs using up, that would be great. So would some roasted broccoli, some asparagus, so many options. And that's the nice thing about quiche, it's just you can put whatever you want in. You could do a leek and bacon, Mediterranean vegetables. Right, so that's all done. That's all done. So it's just the cheese now. So I'm going to just squidge that tomato over and make some room for my cheese, just so when the pastry comes out, I am all ready to put everything into it. And then we're going to put it back in the oven again to bake for about 30 minutes. So here we go, let's grate this. I would say once you've baked your quiche, as lovely as it might look and smell, do give it a while to set. I would give it an hour or so, just to make sure that when you cut into it, it doesn't all spill out. You may even want to put it in for a bit longer than that. There we go. There we go. It's all my cheese. You can use any cheese. I'd suggest hard cheese would be the best, but that's just a mature cheddar. But go for what you like. There we are. We have 3.5 minutes left, so I'm going to suggest that we again pause for the last time, maybe, unless I suppose I could show you the baked product at the end, but we'll pause the video again and wait for it to bake, and then we'll come back and we'll fill it all together. So I will see you in a minute. Hello, we're back and we are baked. You can see when your pastry is out, there is no kind of wet looking base now. It should all be the same colour. Now, before I put any of the filling in, I'm going to smarten up these edges a little bit. So I am just going to use a knife and just gently, whilst it's still warm, I'm going to just take off those edges like so. They don't need to be perfect, it's just, there you go, just press it down there. I see how that went a bit further in, so I don't need to do there, so I'm just going to smarten up this edge. Just a little bit of pressure, but not too much. There we go. Getting a bit cack-handed there. There we go. Right. So now it's all a bit neater. My next thing to do is I'm going to layer up, and I'm going to put the cheese, sprinkle the cheese on. I might hold back a little bit of the cheese just to put on the top. But that is a lot of the cheese into there. There we go. And then I'm going to use the parma ham. You can do this in any order you like, but I'm going to use some parma ham. You don't have to use all of it, you know, see what it looks like when you put it in as to how much you actually want to use of it. I'm sure any toppings that you have won't go to waste. You can always make another quiche or add it to a salad. So that's about right. That was 3 slices of parma ham in there, and a bit left over for me to snack on later, I think. And then I'm going to put my tomatoes in. This makes such a perfect lunch, I think. A nice warm quiche with some new potatoes and salad, or just a slice of quiche on its own, to be honest, makes a really good lunch or snack. Right, just pop those last bits in the middle. Oh, look at that. It's about right. Excellent. Now, I'm going to just give that a bit more of a whisk up, make sure those eggs, milk and cream are combined. And then I'm going to pour that over the top. As I said, it's a really good idea to put your quiche onto a baking tray, just so when you're transferring and things, it's easier to handle. You don't want to have anything hot on you. There we go. There we go. And then, as I said, I'm going to just add the last bits of cheese on the top, just a bit sprinkled. That is going to be so tasty when it's all cooked. If you do have a go at our bakes, you can send them to us. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook at Boozy Bakers, and you can contact us from our website, which is www.boozybakers.co.uk, and you can message us from there, send us your photos. We do love hearing from you and seeing your bakes. And if you subscribe to YouTube, I'm just taking these off the baking tray, sorry, before I bake it again. If you subscribe to YouTube, we can let you know what else we've got going on. There will be new bakes all the time. We've got one, oh no, sorry, there we go, accidents happen. We've got a new workshop this weekend that we will be posting onto YouTube soon, and another one the following weekend. So please do subscribe to our channel and keep up to date, and we'll have you baking every day. Now, with the quiche, we're going to put it back in the oven, same temperature, 190 or 170 fan or gas mark 5, and we're going to bake it for between 30 to 40 minutes. When it's done, your pastry will look more golden on the rim, and your mixture, your filling, should look quite set. However, please do wait for it to cool so that it sets even further. Right, Mr. Boozy Bakers is going to take this off my hands. Thank you. And we will come back with a photo at the end to show you how it looks. But give it 30 to 40 minutes in the oven now. Hiya, and it's out. We've got the finished quiche here. So hopefully yours is looking something like this, whatever fillings you've got on top. So you can see it's got a nice light golden crust. You can see the tomatoes underneath the egg mix there, and that's got a nice golden finish to it. So I'm going to leave that on a cooling rack for about an hour, just so that sets even further, and then I can take a nice slice out of that, and it should stay set. If you do take a slice and it looks like it's going to fill a bit more, take the knife out, leave it for a bit longer until it's completely set. But I'm pretty chuffed with that, and I'm looking forward to eating it. So do send us your photos, like our baking workshop, and follow us for even more baking. Thanks very much, guys.